Creatives with truly insane amounts of talent are making the exact same mistakes over and over again. They're building this marketing strategy that revolves around making the same content as everyone else. And as a result, they're not standing out and they're ruining their chances of building a dedicated audience that wants to buy their work. I have seen this pattern so many times. And after reviewing over 200 applications for this video, I have selected 4 creatives, 4 incredibly talented creatives that perfectly encapsulate all of the different dimensions of this challenge. So welcome to yet another episode of Business Breakthrough, the series where I roast or really just give feedback on your creative business. The 4 creatives we'll look at today range from an oil painter struggling to identify their ideal collector to a multi-passionate tattoo artist wanting to expand beyond their niche. Each has, again, an insane amount of talent and skill, but is just missing a few key pieces that would transform their business and lead to a huge breakthrough. So in today's video, we're going to look at those artists, their businesses, and figure out what they're doing wrong, how they can fix it, and as always, what you can learn from it. This video was sponsored by me. If you like my content, consider checking out my book, a 200-page guide to taking your passions full-time. First up, we have Julie Miet, an artist from France. Julie is a visual artist creating these gorgeous Art Nouveau-inspired illustrations who's been documenting her entire creative journey as she develops her skills here on YouTube. Her content focuses on skill development and art fundamentals, showing her progress as she learns through platforms like New Masters Academy. Julie recently had to unexpectedly close a small business and is now pursuing art full-time. Hi Julie, first off, I love your videos. I think there is so much that you are doing right here and I really want to talk about that. So, okay. If I look at your most popular videos ever, a bunch of them have been posted in the past 6 months. Your most popular video ever was posted in the past 6 months. That is something to be celebrated, okay? I want to take a minute to give you a huge shout out for that. YouTube is not easy. Getting 143,000 views is not easy, so congratulations for doing that. That's a huge accomplishment. But I do notice a couple different things going on here, okay? So you have this YouTube channel where you've been chronicling your journey and talking about kind of advice for other artists. And I want to flag that for you because while you are an art student and an educator and you've been sharing your journey, I want you to think a little bit more about the end game here. In the form response that you gave me, you're talking about mostly wanting to have like prints and products and stuff. I mean, here's a piece right here. This is gorgeous. I love this calendar project that you've been working on. There is so much of Alphonse Mucha that I see in your work. The incredible, like, founder of the Art Nouveau aesthetic almost, right? And I think right now there's this disconnect between your style as an artist, like these gorgeous pieces that you're creating and the prints that you want to sell, and your content right now on YouTube. On one side of your business, you have the self-taught education side of things, right? Where you're helping artists develop their own skills. And we see that in your website. Like, you have some digital products on offer right now, like reference packs, swatch cards, planners. I think that's cool and really interesting, and I see a future for you there as an educator because you're good at this. Your YouTube videos are high production, you're a good speaker, you're good at editing, you pick really good topics to talk about, but it's also a little bit different, right? From having prints and products and a calendar. And I'm not saying that you can't have 2 of those things, but if you want to have those 2 things and you don't want to have 2 channels, or you don't want your Instagram content to be vastly different than your YouTube channel, you have to merge them together a little more clearly. You could have 2 different halves of your business, right? Let's say that your long form YouTube channel is focused on the art education side of things, right? Chronicling your journey as an artist and maybe also your art career in between that. But your Instagram, your short form content, which you do post on Instagram, that could be the, you know, the Art Nouveau stuff, your own personal work, your commercial illustration if you wanted to, maybe designing packaging for various things. Like, you're already thinking about products with this calendar project. I just want you to kind of extend that a little bit further. I want to introduce you to this other creative that I know. Her name is Kate. Kate is a graphic designer. She wants to do like merch design and stuff for these big brands. She's very into sports. She loves Formula One and hockey. And what she does is, instead of waiting around for these gatekeepers to give her opportunities, she explicitly pitches herself to these companies. She creates merch for them, these designs, and chronicles that journey with her audience and tags those brands in her posts and is like, hey, do you want to hire me? I could see a future where you are taking this kind of format, making it your own, and doing kind of the Art Nouveau version of this. If you are more so interested in building your own brand, I also want to kind of point you to this other creator, Eden May. Eden May, a smaller creator. I want to give her a shout out here. I think she is super, super cool and special. I think her account has this lovely art direction to it. She is creating this entire kind of silk scarf brand. She is doing all of the artwork for it, all of the packaging. She is the model, like, this is her, right? And I think so much of this account is so curated, it's so special, it feels so unique, and I think that you could take these kind of different elements of these two creators and really make it your own. And I do just want to flag for you that if you continue going down this road of posting these advice videos, people will want you to be more of an educator. That is not a bad thing, right? And it seems like you already have some familiarity with being an educator, but again, I just want to flag, like, the content that you create selects for the audience that you build, right? If you don't focus as much on sharing your journey, your art process, the story behind your work, your future, which you are doing, but you're also creating these educational videos that are performing really well, but it's going to ultimately lead to a different kind of audience maybe. So just kind of be aware of that. I think there are lots of creators that focus on like the work itself, like Kate, like Eden, that have kind of a different spin on things that focuses more on their own career. And I kind of want you to push a little more in that direction maybe. But let's go ahead and transition to our next artist, Fran Chambers. Fran creates this really gorgeous functional ceramic pottery that weaves in this kind of very retro sci-fi aesthetics. We're talking about mugs with textural bubbly growths or sharp spikes and incredibly vibrant, saturated colors with metallic surfaces. And while Fran thrives at in-person markets and is making regular income, she's currently struggling a little bit to translate that success to her online store, making it difficult to scale beyond local sales. The one thing that I really do want to see is more kind of cohesiveness to your marketing, because you have this really interesting aesthetic of these bold, modern, retro vibes, right? Like kind of this vaporwave aesthetic that's very like Y2K, but also like the Alien movie, you know, like you have this kind of sci-fi blending of things where it feels very bold, very saturated, very interesting. And I think, see that elevated enough in your marketing. Like, your content could be so cool and special. It could have this really interesting like world building attached to it where it's like, okay, like I'm a potter on a space station. I'm making ceramics for the various aliens that come in. Like, I want to see more of a narrative here that bridges everything together, I think, because imagine you're making the kind of funky video stuff like this, where it's really just like interesting and your ceramics are a part of this, and like it's spiky and it's cool and it's bubbly, but it feels more cohesive, you know, like we have more of a story surrounding it. There is a world that these ceramics are a part of that you are interfacing with, even like a representative of. Here is kind of what I'm thinking when I'm saying stuff like this. There's this company, I don't know, series of interactive art exhibits called Meow Wolf. I saw Meow Wolf in Denver. They have like this really weird museum there, and Meow Wolf is like this interactive art experience place where it feels like you have entered a new world when you walk in, right? There is just so much rich world building. It's very funky, it's very retro, it's very sci-fi, it's very like cyberpunk mystery science theater 3000 on acid. Like there's just so much going on in that space, and I feel like it's very spiritually similar to your work. Like this feels like it could come from you, this kind of weird aesthetic, right? Where there's just like so much bizarre stuff going on. And I can't think of another company that is able to have locations all around the world that are as immersive and strange as this. Like they have a whole grocery store that has fake products in it and has this like weird interdimensional like galactic mystery that you can explore in the exhibit. Like this is what I want for you. I want you to have something like this going on where it's like, okay, like what are these ceramics? Yeah, they're funky, yeah, they're weird, but if we were to imagine how they might interact with like an alien world or something, like how would that work? And I think it could be really, really interesting to see you dive more into that. Think about what kind of character you could inhabit. Are you, creating stuff that you saw in a dream? Are you a potter on a space station, creating things inspired by the aliens that you see? I think you could inhabit and you could create the same kind of world building, immersive experience that Meow Wolf has in a digital way. So I want to introduce you to a very different artist that does have some of the things that I was talking about earlier, right? More of an immersive, cohesive vibe to their branding, more clear art direction that touches on the style of their work and the vibe of it. It's Sarah Ritchie. Sarah Ritchie is so talented. I own a bunch of her mugs. I love them so much. They are so me. They're so me. And I think what's really, really special is how she's able to make everything really, really cohesive. Like, she has a clear vibe of her work for sure, right? It's a lot of bugs, it's a lot of interesting forms and stuff on these surfaces. But when I scroll through her Instagram profile, I see more cohesion in it, right? I know what she's about at a glance, and it's memorable to me. That's what I want you to be, Fran. I want you to be memorable, right? I want people to know who you are as soon as they see your post. I want it to be so easy. Sarah Ritchie's work is not perfectly identical to yours, but I think there is something to be said for how cohesive it is, how put together, how clear the art direction is, and how elevated it makes her work. Like, her work is expensive. I'm talking about, $150 per mug, and that price is justified because of the experience of her content and the marketing, right? And I think that you could command similar prices, if not a little bit more expensive, if you were able to create as immersive of an experience as the Meow Wolf brand. And I think the lessons that we're talking about here are true to absolutely every artist that's watching this video right now, right? Not just Fran, not just Julie, all of you guys watching at home. I want you to create a brand that feels memorable, that is unique to you. Like, let's take the themes and the subject matter of your work and imbue that in your entire marketing. Create a world, right? Tell a story. People will remember that. They will remember how you made them feel if you stood out to them in their mind. And because the online space is so saturated, is so crowded, being memorable is one of the most valuable things that you can be. And the next artist we'll cover in this episode is Sung Lin. Sung Lin is an oil painter in Budapest who creates these incredibly subtle, meditative trompe l'oeil paintings. Her work features incredibly delicate optical illusions that give the impression of photos, flowers, and sketches taped to the canvas. While Sung Lin works a day job, she hasn't generated income from her art yet and is struggling to identify who her ideal collector is and how to connect with them. Similar to what I was just talking about with Fran, I think really what I want to see from you, Sung Lin, is more of a focus on storytelling in your creative work and in your marketing, because your work is gorgeous. I mean, truly gorgeous. You are acing the optical illusion stuff. In fact, your work kind of reminds me of this other artist that I really love, Julie Beck. Julie Beck is really, really talented in this particular trompe l'oeil, I'm probably mispronouncing that horribly, kind of genre, where she has just lots of really, really incredible reels where she's honing in this indirect painting style and the optical illusions in her work. It's very like crazy still life vibe where there's a lot of really disparate pieces and have fantastical elements woven into her work in a way that's very special. And her work is, I think, singular in a lot of ways. I think it just stands out because of the subjects that she chooses and the stories connected to that subject matter. And I want you to have more elements of that in your own work. Like, okay, here we have a photo, right? A photo, a sketch, whatever it is. I want more of a story here. Like, what is this object? Why is it important? Who did it belong to? Why is it here? Why did you pick this of all of the things to paint in your work? Why is this what you chose? I think the audience for your work would be a lot clearer if there was more of a direct connection to the subject matter and more of a focus on storytelling. Like, for example, let's say that you did the same style, this exact same style, but your subject matter was more so, I don't know, like historically relevant small objects from overlooked women in history, right? That you chose out of like museum catalogs, but that when put together told a narrative of this particular person. Or maybe you did objects that told a story of a particular like cultural background or a personal history that connected back to you. Or you did something similar to this other artist, Caitlin Winner, who creates these really, really well done paintings that come back to these themes of motherhood and family and friendship, and did more of kind of a narrative focus like this. I think having a more narrative focus to your work where the subject matter has more of a story behind it that you're really well articulating in your content would perform better. You have just under 1,000 followers right now, and you are so incredibly talented. Your skills are not the issue here. The way that you talk about your work and present it to an audience, I think that's the core problem, right? Because your work is gorgeous, but if I'm going to put a painting in my home, speaking from, the imagined perspective of a collector, I want to have a reason that I pick it up. Like, I want to have a story that I'm contributing to or that I'm interacting with. I want more of a thing going on here, right? A kind of a narrative that we're exploring, a cultural history that maybe I'm, interacting with in observing this painting and having it in my house. Because your work could play really, really well in the fine art world, but in those spaces in particular, because of how exclusive they are and how kind of bougie the art world is, and kind of the fine art space, especially in galleries and page shows like that, having that story really well articulated and refined is only more important. And I think your work could clean up in those spaces. I have gone to like big art fairs in San Francisco and seen stuff like this sell for tens of thousands of dollars, and you could be in those spaces very easily. But again, we have to have more of a story. You're doing this a little bit, right? Like this recent piece here, you talked about that journey, but a lot of that is in between you creating, the same turning around the painting and showing it to the audience as everyone else is making. Or, cinematic reels that are cut to the same trending audios that everyone else is using. And I think there's room for more of that for you, right? I think you could do more. I think you could tell more of an original story and share more of the kind of thoughts behind the subjects that you choose and why you're preserving them in this way, because you are preserving them. Like, you're not just painting these herbs, right? You're not just painting this flower. You're like preserving it in this very detailed, concrete way, like forever. So why is that? Why are you making that deliberate choice? What's going on there? What's happening? What's the story? Again, it all comes back to storytelling. Storytelling is the most important thing, I think, for modern creatives today. It is so, so important to be able to articulate why you create the work that you make and why someone should care about it. And with that, let's talk about our final artist for this episode. Our final artist for this episode is Adora Bao, a tattoo artist with a distinctive, delicate line art style, specializing in trippy fantasy designs. Think unicorns with 4 eyes and psychedelic mushrooms. While she has built a following for her tattoo work, Adora is multi-passionate and wants to expand beyond tattooing to sell art and merch. She's managing separate Instagram accounts and a YouTube channel, but is having trouble growing her audience beyond her tattoo niche while maintaining a cohesive personal brand. Okay, hello Adora, let's talk about your YouTube channel because I have some thoughts. I have some things to say, and you wanted me to be ruthless, so I will be ruthless. I think your thumbnails need some work. It seems like your branding is a little all over the place. Like you're most maybe commonly using dark, rich colors, maximalist kind of photos and aesthetic here, and like curvy text that's very serif-y. None of those things are bad, but I do want to make sure that our text is actually readable. I would maybe recommend picking 1 to 2 consistent fonts, really making a point to have them be as high contrast as possible with the background. There is a reason that I have such an intense drop shadow in the text in my thumbnails very often, that I kind of blur out a bunch because I want it to stand out from the rest of the thumbnail. And in thumbnail cases like this video from 2 months ago, I struggle when we zoom out here to read those 2 words quickly. Make sure that when you are designing your YouTube thumbnails, you're zooming out enough, right? Because they do display quite small in practice. What you talked about in your form is wanting to go from kind of an art first content creator to a lifestyle first, art second kind of content creator, right? Where creativity is still important to you, but your YouTube channel is maybe the focus of your business and what you really want to be. You want to be a content creator. And if you want to be a content creator, I want you to start thinking a little bit more so now who your audience is, because you're creating lots of stuff, right? We're talking about, your life as a tattoo artist, soft girl chaos, right? Having a sticker in a print club, being self-employed, right? Like doing all of these story times, focusing really hard on tattooing. But if that's not what you really want to focus on in your content, you need to think about what you do want to focus on and the kind of audience that you do want to attract and the kind of content that you need to make to attract that audience. Like if you don't want an audience that is very tattoo focused, that only cares about tattooing, you have to think about the alternative. Like, okay, you want to be a lifestyle creator. That niche is very saturated. You have to think about the spin that you want to put on it, right? How you are going to be memorable, what your thing is going to be. Because in your form, you mentioned that I talked about Lin Trong. Lin is great. Lin is incredible. They are so, so talented. Their aesthetic is very refined. It's very dialed in. They have a concrete vibe to their work. They really talk about a lot of like travel stuff, organization, creativity. But back in the day, when they first started, they were talking about student life and then college and, navigating early adulthood. Their thing kind of evolved as they did and as their audience did. But they didn't start out super broad. Even creators like Lin and other creators, like I would point you to Garbo Zhu, who had a ceramics small business, started out as a ceramics content creator, and then gradually transitioned into a more kind of like lifestyle aesthetic, with ceramics still like important to her, but not her focus. And that evolution was very gradual. It happened over time, and it remained aligned with her audience because she made content that would work for that. You have to think about like the 2 audiences in question, the audience that you have and the audience that you want, as kind of a Venn diagram, right? Those 2 audiences want different things, but there is an overlap. As much as you can, create content in that overlap. Like create content that fits both the audience that you have right now and the audience that you eventually want. I think really ultimately what I want you to do is have a soul searching journey where you think about the kind of audience that you want, the kind of content that you eventually want to be creating, and create a plan to get there. Okay, that is all of the advice that I have for you, Adora. I wish you well. I think that you are so, so talented, and I cannot wait to see what you do next. And for all of you guys watching, there is one big lesson that I want you to take away from watching this video, and it is to be memorable. Focus on being memorable. Following the exact same formats as everyone else might work for a little bit of growth, but ultimately you will be lost in the crowd and forgotten. So take your vibe to the extreme. Go hard on creating an immersive world in your marketing that couldn't be made by anyone other than you. Creators that stand out, that learn lessons from popular formats and put their own unique spin on them, end up building a more dedicated audience that loves them for them. So ask yourself, do you want to follow trends or do you want to set them? Thank you so much for watching this video. As a reminder, I have so many paid resources available for you. If you want more education from me, I have a book, I have paid workshops. You can get a one-on-one call with me if you want to. Links are in the description for that. And if you want to hang out with me a little bit more, you should check out one of the videos on the screen right now, and I will see you there. Bye.